Hey guys, welcome back to the ninth part of my series previewing the 2020-21 NBA season. And today we're going to be talking about the Detroit Pistons. So, last season, the Detroit Pistons finished with a 20-46 record, and this was due to them not being a very good team and due to a lot of their players being injured, like Luke Kennard and Blake Griffin. At the trade deadline, they traded away Andre Drummond for nothing, basically nothing. It was like a second round pick. So this draft, they had a lot of picks, or they traded for a lot of picks. They had the seventh overall pick, and with that pick, they selected Killian Hayes. Um, they took on Trevor Ariza's contract and got the 16th overall pick, and with that pick, they selected Isaiah Stewart. And then they traded away Luke Kennard, who was really a fan favorite and a player that I thought was really a part of their future and who, not that they were building around, but was going to be a complementary piece for them. But they traded him away and they got the 19th overall pick and they drafted Sadiq Bey. They also made some free agency signings. They signed Jeremy Grant to 3 years, $60 million, and Mason Plumlee to 3 years, $25 million. So, two former Nuggets players signed to contracts that I think are probably a bit too much, but I'll talk more about that later. Um, the thing that really frustrates me with their free agency and really takes it down a couple notches is that they lost Christian Wood. And after they traded Drummond, Christian Wood was going off in those games. He was like 22 points, 10 rebounds, 39% from three. He was just playing super well and looking not almost like a franchise player. Like, good thing they traded Drummond to get this guy more minutes. But he was unrestricted, and I don't know if they didn't offer him a big enough contract or if he just didn't want to play in Detroit anymore. But he signed with the Rockets for 3 years, $41 million. Like, I don't see why they couldn't have given him 3 years, $50 million. But maybe he just wanted to leave, and that really sucks and hurts Detroit because he was a really important player for them and a key piece, and they just lose them for nothing. They also got DeLon Wright through a trade. They made a lot of trades, and it was hard to keep track of all of them, but those are sort of the major outgoings and incomings of their offseason. So, if we look at a projected lineup, I think it'll be Killian Hayes, DeLon Wright, Jeremy Grant, Blake Griffin if he's healthy, and Mason Plumlee. So, Killian Hayes, the 7th overall pick, is a player that I'm a big fan of. He just looks like a player that's going to succeed in the NBA. He's a good ball handler, especially with his predominant left hand. He's a good playmaker, a really good playmaker, good vision, good pass IQ, all of that stuff. A shooter, he's a good shooter from the line, and from three, his stroke looks good. It's a typical left-hand shot, but he only shot 29% from three in Europe, but not many college players or players playing overseas shoot that well when they're going into the draft, but they usually, some of them end up being good shooters, and I think Killian Hayes can definitely be at least an average shooter. He was also attempting like difficult 3-point shots like step backs and things like that, so he's definitely going to be a good shooter, and he also looks like he's a really good on-ball defender when he's focused, so he's a player I'm a big fan of, and I think he's who they're building around, being the 7th pick in the draft. They also got DeLon Wright. DeLon Wright, just a solid overall player. I think he'll probably start shooting guard, I'm not too sure. Can average about 12 points, I think. Just a solid all-round player. And then they signed Jeremy Grant to 3 years, $60 million, which is a bit more than I thought he was worth or that I thought he was going to get. He's like a typical 3-and-D player. He's a good defender. He's a decent 3-point shooter. But he said he went to Detroit for a bigger role in the offense. So we'll see how good his ball handling and playmaking and shot creation is this season, I guess. I'm not too convinced, but something they could do, I'm sure they could trade him for maybe a first-round pick or something like that later. I mean, I wish his contract was a bit smaller so he was a bit more movable, but there's definitely teams that could use a player like Jeremy Grant. So at least they can still move him on for an asset, even if they don't want to keep him, even if his contract is a bit big for my liking. They also still have Blake Griffin, who only last year, I think, well, 2 years ago now, in 18-19 season, averaged about 24, 7, and 5, and was an All-NBA third-team player. So he was a really good player. Now he's been injured a lot, and he's getting on a bit, but we'll have to see how good Blake Griffin is, and that will determine a lot of how good the Pistons is. If he's back to like how good he was before, maybe I could see them challenging for the 8 seed, challenging to try and get into the play-in game, the play-in tournament. But if he's not healthy, which I suspect might be the case, then they're not going to be very good. So I hope he's healthy because I really like watching Blake Griffin play, but we'll see. Just how he's evolved his game in the last few years to become more of a playmaker, more of a ball handler, more of a three-point shooter. If he's not injured, he could really do well. They also signed Plumlee. I mean, he's a decent backup center. I don't really know how much he's going to do as a starting center. I don't really know what the Pistons need him. 3 years, $25 million. I mean, it's not a huge overpay, but like, why? Just why have they signed him? I'm not too sure. Off the bench, they have Derrick Rose. I mean, I could see maybe Derrick Rose starting, but he was playing a six-man at the start of last season and moved into the starting lineup because of injuries, but he averaged like 18 points, 5.5 assists. What I'd like to really see happen is for him to be traded to a contending team or for a first-round pick. I think they can get a late first for Derrick Rose. He showed he's a good player, so hopefully he can move on to a better situation and the Pistons can get an asset for him. That's what I'd like to see. They also have Spi Mikhailuk off the bench. He's a good shooter, averaged about 9 points a game. With the 19th pick, they drafted Saddiq Bey, and he's a player that I'm a big fan of. He seems like a really good defender and a really good shooter, and if you have those two things, you're likely going to succeed in the modern NBA. I don't really like giving up Luke Kennard, but if Saddiq Bey turns out to be a good player who's more on the timeline of guys like Killian Hayes, then that's okay. And I think he will be a good player. They also have Sekou Doumbouya from last season's draft and last year's draft. He's just a really raw prospect, so we really don't know how good he could be yet with them, but lots of potential, and we'll have to wait and see. And they also drafted Isaiah Stewart with the 16th pick, who is a big man. I'm not really sure about him. Good rebounder, good shot blocker, but we'll have to see how good he is in the NBA to determine how good a pick it is, obviously. So they also have some other players that they picked up, like bench guys like Musa and Jackson, Josh Jackson and Jahlil Okafor. So, oh yeah, and they also picked up LiAngelo Ball today. So, I don't expect those guys to play too much, but I think I'd really like to see Hayes playing well, Derrick Rose traded, Doumbouya and Bey tapping into their potential, but we'll see about that for the season. So the good thing is, yeah, they do have some young players from this year's draft that could be decent. And then if Blake Griffin's healthy, then they're going to be a much better team than if he isn't. The negatives is they're still a very young team, and often with rookie point guards and Killian Hayes, they often don't do well in their first year in the NBA, so we'll have to see about that. They have lots of new people on this roster, so I just don't see them being a very good team, just with Griffin's injury problems. I'm not too sure about Grant and Plumlee's contracts, and them just having a lot of new and young players. We'll see. If everything goes right, maybe they could challenge for the play-in, but I'm not sold. I think they're going to finish about 13th in the East. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys.